Hello, colleagues.
Just in time.
Hello. So I think that we should begin. At least finally I can see Claire and Stepan are online. So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our webinar, which is dedicated to the experience with importing to Russia from the UK and to recent update in Russian legislation. Let me please introduce our speakers for today's webinar. It's Claire Williams, Executive Director and Secretary of British Equestrian Trade Association, and Stepan Kotov, Head of Customs Practice, IFCG. We also have in panel, but he's not online at the moment, I think, Matteo Ferrara, Director for Europe. He was and America's TechSert Group.
I'm online.
You're online, so
yes.
Sorry,
I have problem with webcam. You know, I'm trying to work it out.
Okay, so Matteo is in panel with us, and he will be ready to answer to the questions at our Q&A sessions. Before we start, please let me just give you a brief intro about our DIT Russia activities in equestrian sector. Our first event was in September 2019. We brought British companies to Russia, where they got to know about the state of equestrian industry in Russia, met representatives of the Russian Equestrian Federation, visited equestrian clubs in Moscow and St. Petersburg, and met potential Russian buyers. After that, in January 2020, yeah, this one, sorry. It was a follow-up. We organized a business mission to Birmingham and Yorkshire to show Russian companies UK equestrian industry and to introduce them to British manufacturers and of horse equipment, horse feed, and clothing. And with current situation with the pandemic, we mostly engaged in digital events, and DIT Russia together with Beta hold a chain of equestrian webinars. I'm sure that Claire will tell you a bit more, and I'm pleased to give the screen to Claire. Claire, I turned your presentation on, so you can.
Can I take?
Yes.
Can I advance it step by step
bottom,
myself? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Katya. Sorry, my line froze. As Katya said, my name's Claire Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Beta. To give you some background on myself, I come from a background of exporting. I worked in New Zealand, actually, for the New Zealand equivalent of DIT in the 90s, before I was sent to Europe for one of my client companies to develop their export trade from Germany. So I lived in Germany for 10 years and ran their European office and was responsible for importing from New Zealand and then re-exporting from Iceland down to Turkey and Russia across to Portugal. So a very big market area. But one of the main reasons that I was there was to develop the business into Eastern Europe. So in the early 90s, it was just when the communism had been overhauled, the wall came down, and there was a lot of changes in Eastern Europe. And in fact, I visited Russia first in 1991. So there were a lot of changes since then, huge changes. And at that time, we were just starting to develop business. We developed business in Moscow and St. Petersburg at an interesting time, and had some very, very good customers there. I left Germany in 2000 to come over to the UK and join Beta. And since then, we've developed Beta in different directions, and one of them is very much encouraging our members to develop export markets, and that's where our involvement with Russia really came in, more recently a couple of years ago, but starting back in 2005, because export has been key for a lot of my members, especially during difficult times. The first big push was in 2001 when foot and mouth hit, and it meant that a lot of our businesses couldn't trade in the UK because horse riding in effect stopped, and so they had to develop export markets to survive. Great. So Britain has a very long reputation for equestrianism in all its forms. We have some of the most iconic races in the world and some of the most iconic events such as Badminton horse trials and Burghley horse trials. We're very lucky because these things tend to take place in absolutely gorgeous settings. So it's very easy for us to market our products with those settings as backgrounds. Also for the equestrian industry, we have a real reputation for having products with classic style, good design, as well as being able to show real innovation in the wide range of products that we develop that's needed to ride and keep our horses. It is an extremely broad market, so my members represent that breadth as well, from clothing to footwear to saddlery and feed. It's a huge potential market that we have to develop and develop export markets for. And British companies, I'm very glad to say, have a reputation for quality. And so whenever we go overseas, not just to Russia, but any of the overseas markets we go to, when you say you're there with British product, the assumption is it's going to be good quality. Sometimes there's also a high price tag associated with it, which sometimes definitely works in our favour. To put it in context, for those of you who don't know much about the equestrian industry, we as BETA undertake research every 4 to 5 years, which is the only independent research here, which really defines the size and the scope of the market we're dealing in. So we have 3 million riders, so approximately 7% of the national population either rides or owns or keeps horses. There's a huge potential market. We have 27 million people who have some form of interest in the equestrian industry. Now that includes people who go racing or who bet, so not necessarily directly linked to the horse, but a huge potential market all the same. And in fact, the equestrian industry is worth over 4.7 billion to the national economy, and that's just the leisure side. If you add racing and excluding betting, so all the money that it costs to train racehorses, keep racehorses, and the value of the training fees and other racing associated costs, the equestrian industry totals over £8 billion, so very significant. And also we employ now almost as many as are employed in the agricultural industry. We have 250,000 people with equestrian related jobs. We have nearly 850,000 horses and 5 million households who keep horses. So we have a huge potential out there for companies developing here, which is why we have so many companies producing such good products, but they do need to export those, and that's where BETA comes in to try and help them develop those export markets. We are a trade association for manufacturers and suppliers and also retailers of equestrian equipment to customers around the world. We currently have a membership of around 850 manufacturers and retailers, and we offer a lot of the very similar services that most trade associations offer. We develop membership benefits. We work alongside equestrian bodies such as the British Equestrian Federation, British Dressage, Show Jumping, Eventing, and all of the other FEI, which is the International Equestrian Federation disciplines. We offer training on a wide range of topics, both product related and generic business topics, but the knowledge that we have, it's a very important part of what we take overseas. It's not just product, but it's the knowledge around that product as well. And certainly in a Russian context, that's where we find the Russian market is thirsty for information, and that's something that we from Britain can provide them with. And another very important benefit that we provide our members is that ability to help them develop new export markets and grow the ones that they are already involved in. And that leads us to be able to provide market information and contact because of the background we have in helping them to export. We assist overseas buyers to source products and partners from the knowledge we have of what's available here. And one of the key tools that we have to help our members develop export markets and attract overseas buyers is our own trade fair, Beta International, which is a trade-only fair that takes place once a year. Traditionally, it would take place in January. We got in just before COVID-19 last year. This year, obviously, we haven't been able to run, so we've actually postponed through until September. And there we have both exhibitors from the UK and around the world and visitors from around the world. So it's a really good pull-in to help people perhaps start to make those export contacts. The main way we help develop export markets is through actually going into the markets with our members. So we organise UK groups at leading trade fairs overseas. So traditionally we would take our members to Germany, Australia, USA, Middle East to trade fairs. And that's why the cooperation we've had with the embassy in Moscow has been really key to us being able to develop the market in Russia. I first visited the market with my equestrian hat on in 2004, following actually approaches from a number of Russian retailers who had already attended our show back then. And that first time I went with a trade hat on, I noticed that the market was dominated by suppliers from primarily Germany and France. These two companies typically are the ones that go into what I would call trickier countries. And I could see that there was real opportunity for our members and there was a real thirst to buy British. There was some product in there, but not a lot. I made several attempts to try and get companies to take that plunge into the Russian market. I took a showcase to Russia the following year in 2005 to the Moscow trade show Equestrian, which is actually a consumer show. But I found it very difficult, to be quite frank, of engaging companies. A lot were very, very hesitant about Russia. And I found the same in trying to develop the market in China. China is a market very similar to Russia. It has real potential for real growth. In 2004, 5, 6, the market in Russia for equestrian products was still very, very exclusive. The type of people who rode tended to be the very, very wealthy. And there wasn't a lot. They hadn't filtered down. In China, probably 4 years ago, it's very similar, dominated by the very wealthy. But as has happened in Russia, it has really developed and is much more a mass sport than it was 15 years ago. And it's interesting, that first visit I made, I visited a club, a riding club called Atrada, which had just been built. And then when we went back to visit in 2019, we visited that same centre and it had tripled, if not quadrupled in size. So it really shows how getting into a market early makes all the difference. And I think if we had managed to persuade more British companies to get into the market in 2005-6, I think we would have a much stronger presence in the market now. So with the help of, as Katya's already said, with help and support through the embassy in Moscow, we put together and rather more persuasively convinced a group of companies to go out. And they were surprised. I don't quite know what they were expecting, but they were very surprised by the warmth of welcome and the enthusiasm with which they were met when they got out there. Companies were genuinely interested in what they had to offer. And I think, and this is what I said before, key is the information. So we're able to develop, deliver not just the product, but the knowledge behind it and the knowledge of how to use it. So what we've been doing in the seminars, because we haven't been able to visit again since, is that we've concentrated on areas where there is expertise needed in using the products we have to offer. So if it's saddles, they need to know how they should be fitted and used. similar to bits and bitting. Safety equipment is one that we will be running seminars on, how to fit, how to wear, what the different standards are, and why these standards are set, and why we are good as British in delivering these products well. So brings us back to Beta International. We brought in a group of visitors. So we had visitors from the retail, we had a manufacturer, and we had representatives from the Russian Equestrian Federation, who are one of our key partners, because they then get the information out about the benefits of buying British to the riding population as well. At Beta International, we have over 3,000 trade visitors and over 300 exhibitors, and it's a real showcase for both the trade and the expertise we have to offer. And I think the outcome of that mission, both going to Russia to visit the market, which I think is absolutely crucial to understand the people you're dealing with and exactly what they want in terms of product, and then coming here to reinforce that relationship and introduce rather better the expertise that goes into these products. And the result of those visits were real sales. Orders were placed at the trade fair. We did get some orders on the first visit. I think one of the challenges in selling to Russia was the paperwork and the challenges in getting product in. Our experiences of this year, the first 3 months, and the relationship and trying to continue to trade with Europe has challenged many of the companies that are in my membership. And I think it's made people realise that perhaps Russia isn't as difficult as they might have otherwise thought it was, had it not been for Brexit. I think people are becoming a lot more skilled in doing their export documentation because of their need to continue to trade with Europe. And I think that will actually make people more interested in exporting to other markets that they might previously have shied away from. So we're continuing to do the development as much as we can, rolling out our webinar program and also an online training platform, so that we can again continue to introduce the expertise that we have to offer, and then the products that can deliver and fulfill that expertise. That's pretty much it from me. If anybody has any questions, I'd be pleased to be able to try and answer them.
Thank you very much, Claire. Stepan, and I think that I'm passing the screen to you with the presentation, which is...
Yes, hello, colleagues. I just want to list it. Yeah, it's okay. So, colleagues, a few words about our company. Our company IFCG established in 2009, and we specialize in customs clearance and certification. We are not restricted by any groups of products, so we work with almost every types of products. And as concerns equestrian equipment, actually such products are not considered to be very difficult from customs, from import point of view. So it's possible to import it, yes, and make certificates. Contents of my presentation. First of all, we will talk about general current situation in Russia in terms of certification, just a legal summary. Then I will touch particular technical regulations, so certification in terms of particular groups of products. There are two types of documents which which importers should make in order to import products into Russia: certificate and declarations. We will talk about them. And the last thing is equestrian products. goods for equestrian sports, what should we know? What do they need to import them? Generally, now maybe you know that now Russia is the part of Eurasian Economic Union, so it is analogous of European Union. So in EAU includes 5 countries: Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan. So this means that these 5 countries have common territory, common customs territory, and the same legislation in terms of import and certification. So actually it means if you have imported product into Russia, you can transport it to Belarus or Kazakhstan without any customs clearance, without any restrictions, additional documents also. And the document, for example, certificate for products which has already made in Russia, it is also usually valid in Belarus. Of course, there are some exemptions from this rule, but generally it works. And in Russia, the same as in other 5 countries, the import and certification issues are regulated both by EAU law and Russian national law. So Russian national law corresponds to the union law, so in practice now there is no problem here. As concerns the law, just for your information, the main union agreement of 2014, which established that this common territory of 5 countries and the main rules of the relationships. Then we have analog of European Commission, Eurasian Union Commission, which established specific rules for specific procedures for every particular case. And as concerns certification, Commission determines general lists of products which require certification, general procedures and schemes of certification. We will touch them a little bit later. And also Russian federal laws refers to this topic. So in particular, in Russia, we have federal law on technical regulation, and this law determines, for example, responsibilities of manufacturers and importers who certify products. As concerns particular certification issues, if you import any products, for example, equestrian products, what should you do at first? First of all, in EU, in Russia, there are so-called technical regulations. What is technical regulation? It is a legal act which contains the procedure of certification of a certain group of products. And such groups of products are also specified in this particular technical regulation. Now we have 49 such regulations, and here you can see the main regulations. We call them TR of EAEU, also they are called in Russia. The main regulations, for example, the TR number 4 on safety of low voltage equipment. Low voltage equipment, it means actually any electronic equipment which works on the voltage less than 1000 volt. So it is any household devices, laptops, mobile phones, and so on and so forth. So almost all our household devices fall under these technical regulations. The regulation number 10 on safety of machinery and equipment, it is more concerning industry, industrial products. Regulation 17 on safety of life industry products, it covers shoes, clothes, including shoes and clothes for equestrian industry. Electromagnetic compatibility, TR number 20, it concerns any radio devices such as mobile phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and so forth. So here it is the prolongation of this list. Actually, the whole list of all technical regulations you can see at our website in English. We have published information about them in English, where we have just general description of each regulation and general list of products which fall under this regulation. So if your product falls under any technical regulation, this means that you can import it, but in order to import, you need to register one of the two documents: Declaration of Conformity or Certificate of Conformity, DC or CC. So what's the difference and what's the general idea of these documents? So the main difference is that DC is signed and registered by importer, by applicant, and CC certificate is should be registered, should be made, issued by special Russian certification authority. So at first glance, it seems that declaration is it can be issued easily, but actually it's not just a paperwork, the same as certificate. Usually, in order to register these declarations, first of all, we need to make testing the samples of products in order to confirm that they correspond to technical regulations. So here they have the list of products. It's not, of course, it's not the full list. It's just the most widespread products which fall subject to declaration, not certificate but declaration. Here it is. Of course, there are much more other products which also subject to declaration, but it's just what is commonly used. And here it is the list, which is the list of products which require a on import. The general idea is that usually the products which are considered to be more dangerous for people, they require certificate. If a product is not considered to be dangerous for people, the declaration is enough. Usually the products which for household use are just laptops and mobile phones and so forth. People use it quite often, and that's why they require a certificate. In the meantime, any routers or maybe other equipment industrial equipment. It can be much more difficult equipment, but it's not require certificate, but require declaration. And here a few words about procedure, how to register certificate and declaration. So as I said, declaration is registered by an applicant, by importer. So usually importer, it is a Russian company who has agreement with manufacturer, with foreign manufacturer, and within this agreement, Russian company registers declaration. So it's just printed on the paper and signed and stamped by the applicant. Whereas a certificate should be drawn up on special blanks, and it is certification body, certification authority who signs it and stamps it. And for this reason, it is applicant, importer, who bears the whole responsibility for declaration. For example, if Russian authority finds that there is any problem with this product, so it is the applicant who will be responsible. And in terms of certificate, it is certification body who will be responsible. As concerns the main procedure, in both cases, we usually should test the samples. It is usually made such a way that the importer, Russian company, imports a few samples of a product into Russia. Here they are tested in laboratories which have accreditation for testing, and after that, only after that, the applicant may register declaration or apply to certification authority and register certificate. But certification procedure is more complicated than declaration procedure, because apart from testing, it also includes factory inspection. This means that certification authority sends its representative to the factory, to the foreign factory, to the manufacturer, and they check if production is correct, does it correspond certain rules, and so forth. Now, due to specific situation, it is possible to make such factory inspection via internet, just using Zoom or so. As concerns novelties in certification, in last year, new technical regulation came into force, 37 technical regulation. Actually, what is it? It is it regulates the maximal amount of hazardous substances, lead, mercury, and so forth, in electronic devices and equipment. So almost all electronic products fall under this technical regulation. Previously, there was no such regulation in Russia, whereas in Europe it has been since 2006, if I'm not mistaken. In Europe it is called ROHS, yes. In Russia it is called Technical Regulation 37. So it is the novelty of last year. Also, last year, Russian government decided to tighten the certification procedure, to tighten the control. And now, if we have a certificate, if we have already received a certificate from certification authority, It means that each year we should confirm that our product corresponds to the rules, corresponds to the certificate. It is called inspection control, surveillance. So the certification body every year may ask us to give them new samples for new testing. So each year we need to make testing again to confirm our certificate. It's not. It concerns only certificates, not declarations. The technical regulation number 43 also came into force last year concerning fire safety. As concerns some technical regulations, for example, for children playgrounds equipment, for drinking water, they should have come into force last year, but they postponed to the end of this year, to December. So what already happens, or what already happened this year in 2021? First of all, again, we can see that the procedure of certification is becoming more and more complicated. So now, if we register declaration, we should do it ourselves. So the applicant, Russian importer, should register at website of Russian governmental website and fill in all necessary information concerning declaration. Previously, it was easier. Previously, importers could use the help of special organizations, companies, intermediaries, and now they can't. They physically should do it themselves and sign by their electronic signature. Also, now, both in declaration and in certificate, we need to specify global location number of the factory which produces the goods, the products. We will have to do it since July of this year. It concerns declarations, and from the August as concerns certificates. Also, we are expecting the new technical regulation 41 on safety of chemical products, which is going to come into force in June. Now it's not clear how it will work, because actually we don't have any explanations from the government in terms of such regulations. And the major part of certification authorities do not have special accreditation, special license to work with it. So it is a kind of summary concerning current procedure of certification in Russia. What should you know? General moments. So first of all, if you want to have correct certification, you need to import samples for testing and test them in Russia. It is the general rule, of course. In certain cases, Russian authorities accept test reports from manufacturer, but in most cases we import samples and test them here. The second thing is authorizing agreement, so-called dual. What does it mean? It is the agreement between manufacturer and Russian importer. Because if Russian importer doesn't have such agreement, he can't register declaration and apply for certificate. So, and the foreign manufacturer itself also can't register declaration and apply for certificate, because it is only a Russian company who can do this. So in order to have declaration and certificate, first of all, we need to have such agreement between manufacturer and Russian importer. The third thing is that Russian laboratories which make testing for products, they usually they make tests, and sometimes they do not make all necessary testing, and it is a problem because such test reports they can be or they cannot be accepted by certification authorities, and even if the declaration or certificate is registered, they can be abolished in the future due to this reason. So it is recommended to check the laboratory, to check its license, which particular products they are authorized to test, and so forth. And the last thing is surveillance. I have already talked about it. It concerns only certificates, not declarations, but it is the case. If you have a certificate, you need to confirm every year. You need to make testing or factory control again. And here the summary for equestrian products. As here we tried to specify which particular products require which particular certificates, which particular certification. Of course, it's just general information, and usually if we want to determine does our particular products require a declaration or certificate, or maybe it doesn't require anything, in this particular case, we always ask our clients to send us the general description of the product, maybe photographs, and having that, we analyze it and we make final decision what is required here, or maybe nothing is required. But it is difficult to say just if you just have the name of product, general name. It is always difficult to give final answer what is required here, because there can be a mistake here. So just my contact details. Katya, I think it is the end.
Yes, thank you very much. And now we have a little bit of time for Q&A session. And everyone is welcome to ask questions in the chat box, and I will read them to our speakers. Actually, we already have 2 questions. First one, does horse feed need a declaration of conformity?
Yes, as I said, it is yes, the high possibility that it requires declaration, but we need to see which particular feed. So it's difficult to say for all the feed. Maybe there is also such an additional document. In Russia, it is called Certificate for State Registration. SGR, yes, maybe the feed can also require such a document. Or in Russia, we also have veterinary certificates. It is another sphere. So in order to give the full answer, we need to see the description of this food, which is the food, the composition. It will be very helpful for us to determine what is required in this particular case.
Thank you. Another question.
I can add a bit
yes,
on that. No, just in general, all any kind of food for animal is directly legislated by Russia directly. There is not a common regulation for the 5 countries. So basically, it should be, very likely a declaration, but it's not an EAC declaration. It's a GOST declaration. I don't want to make it more complex than it is. Just there are a set of documents which are regulated by all the countries together, and a set of documents which every country do by itself. And in this case, as it's correctly written in this slide, actually, it's national standard, and it's a GOST declaration for the feed. For any kind of food.
Thank you. And before reading next question, I also add a question from Claire. And what limitation are there on importing feed? We understood that there were issues around GM content, genetic modified content.
Also, in this case, it will be better to see which particular feed, but there is such a document, a veterinary certificate, as I say, and the GOST declaration. Yeah. So there is no, I don't think that now we have any limitations in terms of quantity of the imported feed. Yes, but we need to have all certificates required, and of course, in this case, there can be issues.
Just in every case, we have to deal with GMO. All the requests need to go through the Rospotrebnadzor, which is the agency for the safety of consumer and products. And very likely there is the document it was my colleague was talking about earlier on, which is the SGR. But this is, it's for every GMO need to go through the state agency.
Okay, thank you. Our next question: would cleaning and disinfection products for stables need DC or CC?
Again, SGR. The most of cleaning products are required to have a SGR document, which is issued by the Rospotrebnadzor as well. So also in this case, we are not strictly talking about EAC declaration or certification, but of another document.
And the declaration certification also may require here. Again,
I thought about that, but I can't recall any particular regulation which would take in consideration, product for cleaning. If you have something better, I'd be glad to know.
It may be Russian national GOST or something like that.
Yeah. But at the very end, you're gonna go anyway, and you're gonna be required to have an SGR anyway, and maybe a declaration according to GOST is possible, but I can't recall a situation where I've done that.
Actually, in Russia, we have, just for general information, in Russia we have, before the union, before customs union, Russia had a large number of regulations. It was very, very complicated. It is heritage of Soviet Union, GOSTs, many rules, many regulations, and some of them still alive. Some of them are still used, and so in this case we have some difficulties. Yes, for this reason I say that if we have any product, we just take it and analyze this particular product, and we see all the legal base, legislation, and at this time we can say, yes, this particular product requires this, and this.
Thank you. We have a question from CDE Global. As a manufacturer of washing and screening equipment for construction and mining sectors, do we need to get CC in case we are dealing with dealers in Russia?
Yes. You need. Okay, there. Okay, the mining sector it's vast. You know, it's a pretty wide definition. So you know there are some machinery which required declaration, some other certificate. The most critical case for the mining sector is probably both the safety around the explosion-proof equipment and the safety of the. Okay, there are some cases where also meteorological documents are very important, especially on the measure, you know, on some kind of measurement of torque, and you know, and for some instruments, you know, very designed for those kind of application. But it's so wide that you know you basically can fit any document, you know, available in Russia, you know, in the mining sector.
Thank you.
Let's.
Stepan, do you have something to add? So next question, could you advise on the status of importing saddles and other leather goods, please?
So if it is meant a sort of temporary import, as I understand, so if we import saddles or any other goods and then we re-export it back, so it is here we have simplified customs procedure, and in most cases, we do not need to make register certificates and declarations. If we have temporary import for certain purposes, for example, for competitions, for horse ridings, yes, for specific event, yes. In this case, we can import it temporarily and then re-export back without any certificates or declarations. But if we import it without any particular purpose, especially if we do not know if we re-export it back or not, in this case we have to pay customs duties, import VAT 20%, and make certificates or declarations, depending on the type of products.
Thank you.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting to understand what by leather goods we are intending. I mean, you know, if it's leather goods directly for the animal or for the person as well, because it's for the person as well. So there is all the regulation around the clothing, for you know, around the clothing, around maybe as well professional clothing, and so there you have a kind of stratification of norms, and you may be required to have the different documents or documents with according to more than one regulation. But you know, as you can see in this slide as well. So
yeah, we actually have clarification that it's bridles and gears, equine leather goods.
If concern, you know, it's like in the slide, you know, if it concern the animal, there is no EAC regulation for that.
Do you know what duty is imposed on saddles?
Of course, there are about 10,000 duty rates in Russia. I mean, for 10,000 products and 10,000 duty for each has its own duty rates. Of course, I don't remember, but I think it is about 10 or 15% of its value. And also you pay 20% of import VAT. So you pay duty 10% and 20% of import VAT. So totally it's about 30-35% if we have simple import. Not temporary import, but just import.
Thank you. Are there any language requirements for labels? Should labels be in Russian or can they be written in English?
Yes, again, if we import it just without re-exporting back, if we just import, and if we make a declaration or certificate, in this case, we should have special labeling. It should be in Russian. It should have EAC mark and certain information about product. It depends on technical regulation. Each technical regulation requires specific information in Russian. For example, name of manufacturer, model name of product, some other information concerning safety, and so on. But if we import products just for event, temporary import, again, they do not require to have any special marking.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Final call for questions. No, it looks like at the moment we answered everything, but I just want to remind that in case if you will have any other questions on this or any other types of importing or certification, you're welcome to contact our speakers. And first of all, we can, if you don't have any contacts, please write the questions to me and I'll forward them and make some introduction. Thank you very much for to our speakers and to everyone for being with us today. So hope you found this webinar useful and see you next time and our other events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.